Good morning, Jamaica. It is Wednesday, June 3, and it's time for another post-cabinet press briefing. And this morning, we have some of my favorite people here to talk to you about what's happening in the administration. As always, as you know, we are very open to answering questions. We're very much big on telling Jamaica what's happening in government because we understand that the work that we do is for you. And so this morning, it gives me so much pleasure to invite and to really acknowledge all of our special guests who are here today. We have Senator the Honourable Kamina Johnson-Smith, our wonderful Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. We have Dr. the Honourable Andrew Wheatley, Minister with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects here in the Prime Minister's office. We also have many of their supporting teams, but also I want to acknowledge Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information, Senator Marlon Morgan, who you hear all the time in the media talking about what work the administration supporting ministries, departments, and agencies. We also have some student leaders with us this morning, and I want to acknowledge Mr. Brian Anderson, the president of the NSSC, that's our National Student Council, secondary schools, and his team who are here. We also have Mr. Shamar Wilson from Wilma's Boys School, and he's also the incoming deputy chair of the Jamaica Prefects Association. Thank you for being here. And some extremely special guests with us this morning. We have members of the Golden Cross team, and I'll tell you more about here, but they are a wonderful example of the diaspora, and Minister Johnson-Smith, don't know if you're going to talk about diaspora conference at all, but it's good to have members of the diaspora here with us in a post-cabinet press briefing on a morning like this when you have two excellent ministers talking about what's happening in the administration. And I want to again say good morning to all Jamaicans who are watching at here and abroad, and to the members of the media who are here and also online. Thank you for being here for another post-cabinet press briefing. This morning, because of everything that's going on, we're going to get straight into it. And so I'm going to have the first guest come up, and that is none other than our Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And she is so excellent at it that I always say she's the best Minister of Foreign Affairs this country has ever had, and one of the best in the world. And that was borne out earlier this year when I went on a trip, and everywhere I went, and I was with other country leaders, they kept asking, where is Minister Johnson-Smith? And I was like, wow, you're popular around the world. She is very highly regarded, and she's a shining example of persons with professional integrity and just brilliant people coming into government and making their contribution. So this morning, please join me in welcoming our Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator the Honourable Kamina Johnson-Smith.
Good morning, everyone here with us in the room and those joining us online, and a special welcome to our members of the diaspora here. I don't know how Dana is so amazing at just bringing everyone in and getting the best special guests to come and share space with us in the mornings. Dana also gives me the best introductions. She is really just a shining addition to this cabinet, and I'm not saying so because she's so nice to me, just because you are able to see the value of the work she does in not only communicating the work of the administration, but of course in driving transformation of education, youth engagement, as we have represented here, and our skills development in Jamaica, all important and critical on the path forward. So good morning, my dear colleague Andrew and Senator Morgan, all dignitaries here, and especially my incredible team from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, without which I would not be regarded highly anywhere. Thank you very much for all you do to support the work of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And Minister Dixon, thank you again for giving us the opportunity to come to share, because this morning I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to update the country on some of the work of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. I'm going to deal with 4 issues, 4 areas. Firstly, the outcomes of the 3rd session of the Jamaica-Ghana Permanent Joint Commission for Cooperation. Secondly, the government's ongoing support and engagement with our students in Cuba. Thirdly, the visit of the USS Nimitz to Kingston Harbor. And fourthly, of course, the 11th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference set for June 14th to 18th in Montego Bay, Jamaica. So firstly, our reinvigorated Jamaica-Ghana cooperation. You would recall that in January of this year, we welcomed Minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Ghana, and we had announced at that time that plans were underway to convene the Jamaica-Ghana Permanent Joint Commission after 21 years in abeyance, 21 years since this Joint Commission has met. I was therefore really pleased to lead Jamaica's delegation to this 3rd session in Accra, Ghana, with the formal meetings being held on May 25th and 26th. The visit provided an excellent opportunity to advance and re-energize our cooperation in the areas of health, in the areas of defense, trade, air services, culture, sports, and education. I was joined by Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. the Honourable Christopher Tufton, and his Permanent Secretary Errol Green. Jamaica's High Commissioner to Ghana, His Excellency Lincoln Downer. He is non-resident because he is also accredited and based in Abuja, Nigeria. Our Honorary Consul, Okateche Boache Dankwa Ababio, and Ms. Joanne Archibald, Principal Director in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports, as well as a high-level team from my ministry, including Mrs. Nicolette Williams, Director of our Bilateral Relations Department, played a critical role in pulling a lot of the threads together, as well as other officials from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, some of whom would have just returned 2 days ago because they stayed behind to activate some of the discussions which we had. In this context, at the conclusion of our sessions, 2 agreements were signed for cooperation in health and defense. And an agreement was also reached on the expanded areas of cooperation now being undertaken in sports and culture. So we updated what was a 2005 agreement for cooperation in sports and culture, and we have expanded the areas and modernized its language and scope and context. The health agreement supports the recruitment of Ghanaian health professionals to Jamaica. This has gotten some coverage in the press. It is exciting in Ghana as it is here. And there is, I tell you, great energy afoot in Accra to move and operationalize this arrangement. So we look forward to hearing more news from the Minister of Health in very short order on this matter. But it also includes cooperation in hospital management, in specialized care, in digital health, in telemedicine, emergency preparedness, and of course, research and health surveillance. On defense cooperation, which was again an area coming out of the meetings which took place here in this room, the agreement provides for a framework for joint training for maritime security, cyber defense, and cooperation against transnational threats. Of note is also the agreement's focus on humanitarian and disaster response, which builds on Ghana's solidarity mission here in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa, recognizing that the presence of the Ghana Defense Force here in the model which they engaged was the very first time that they were undertaking this type of humanitarian support. Normally, they donate food or other in-kind or even cash, but this was the first time they had had members of their engineering corps on the ground, and it has now served, because of its excellent success, it now will serve as a model for their unfolding of this model in other humanitarian responses where required. And just to share that it's a great matter of pride for them, but it's also quite a source of amusement, how thrilled they are that when the troops came to Jamaica, that they did not want to leave. So Minister Ablakwa makes the joke that he actually came to check that they weren't being kidnapped, but that they were, in fact, simply working so well with their Defense Force colleagues, shoulder to shoulder, so well integrated into the communities that they were serving, that it demonstrated not only that our excellence in performance is exactly on par, but that there's a real fraternal connection that oceans and time have not dimmed at all. So this is something which they now plan to roll out, and it's something that we have embedded in our cooperation agreement. On the matter of trade, investment, and connectivity, both countries have also agreed to cooperate in agro-processing, fintech, logistics, manufacturing, energy, and the creative industries. And these align well with both of our countries' respective beliefs that South-South cooperation must deepen into economic cooperation, creating jobs and promoting exports and investment. So in this context, the next major step will be the export and business mission to Ghana in July, to be led by Senator the Honourable Aubin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and he will be accompanied by Jamaican private sector entities. As at this time, we have 38 companies that are registered to attend with them. If you are interested in participating, you can contact JAMPRO to find out more details. They are always ready to add more companies that are interested in our not only investment opportunities in Ghana, but promoting investment opportunities in Jamaica. Jamaica's place within CARICOM and Ghana's role within the Africa Continental Free Trade Area both create a strong platform for private sector engagement across the Caribbean and Africa. And as we know, the Afrexim Bank is here now, present in Kingston, doing a roadshow, engaging with private sector and government, looking at actual operationalization of financing arrangements and investment arrangements across the spectrum of sectors, which I have just mentioned. So all of the levers are being pressed in the direction of mutual benefit and Caribbean African economic growth and prosperity. So just to add to that, we also agreed in our commission meetings that both of our countries will advance the operationalization of the bilateral air services agreement, which we signed in 2018. Ghana on their side is working on their airlift, and there will be more to say about that in due course. And we are ultimately examining the opportunity for establishing direct air links and by extension increased people-to-people ties between Kingston and Accra, both gateways to our respective regions. And we look forward to announcing more about this in short order. To touch on heritage and reparatory justice, not because they're less important, but because they are in fact sources of deep cultural and historical importance for us. The visit also included an outing to the Cape Coast Castle, one of the most recognized sites associated with the trafficking and enslavement of Africans across the Atlantic. I not only had the opportunity to lay wreaths in the cells where they held women who were known for what they call troublemaking and what we call resistance, but also the cell which was known to hold those the captives who were most known for escapes, for attempts to escape, and where they were held before they were condemned, because they were in fact never allowed to board. It was, you know, a very moving and an impactful tour, experiencing, allowing us to understand even more personally what we've all read about in history books. When the tour guide asked me if I had any questions, I said to him very proudly that we learn about this. We learn about this. They don't learn about it in school. In many African countries, they don't teach slavery at all. And therefore, it is not as well understood as we, as persons of African descent, understand it here. And we also had the very proud opportunity, therefore, to present the curator of the museum with a gumbe drum, an abeng, and a copy of Jamaica's Emancipation Declaration for it to be displayed in the museum. These symbols of Maroon heritage honor survival, they honor resistance, they honor freedom, and they help to connect the Cape Coast as a place of forced departure with Jamaica's own story of survival, of arrival, of resilience, and of the continuing pursuit of justice. I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the Honourable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, whose ministry curated the items for us to carry and to hand over, and who continues to lead Jamaica's work in heritage and reparatory justice. Jamaica took the opportunity to commend Ghana for its leadership in securing the UN General Assembly resolution recognizing the trafficking and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity, and we recommitted to working further with them on next steps beyond the UN resolution. I want to also take the opportunity to thank my counterpart, the Honourable Samuel Ablako, for his warm hospitality and active engagement, because I think everyone left 100% certain that the work will continue through biennial political consultations and technical implementation arrangements, recognizing that we will celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations in 2028, and that next biennial commission will be held here in Kingston. If I move to the second issue, and sorry, Minister, for taking so long on just one, but it is critical to our engagement with non-traditional partners and to our expansion of direct bilateral cooperation beyond those which are closest to us geographically. So on the matter of Jamaican students in Cuba, I wish to turn to their welfare to recognize and acknowledge that the government's first concern remains their safety, well-being, and academic continuity. Through sustained advocacy, we are pleased to advise that the ministry was able to secure from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service a further increased payment of stipend for our scholarship students. We also advocated for early release of the funds because they're always paid on the basis of grades, and because of delays that were occurring in that space due to their own technical issues at the academic institutions, we did not want them to suffer undue hardship, so we were able to get the Ministry of Finance to release the funds early in order to minimize a hardship that could have been created. At our request as well, the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Ministry of Education, Youth and Skills and Information have also engaged the universities of the West Indies, Mona, and the Caribbean School of Medical Sciences on their capacity to accommodate students who may return within relevant areas of specialization. Both institutions have indicated a willingness to consider applications. Both institutions have indicated that they have space. Again, admission decisions remain the responsibility of the universities under their own accreditation and matriculation standards. We continue to advocate for them to determine innovatively and creatively some mechanism that can recognize the particularities of the current circumstances, and we look forward to hearing further from them in this regard. We recognize, however, that there are some fundamentals that are difficult to work around, and that is the fact that placement must depend on your academic qualification or what you have accomplished, what you have learned, and that is usually demonstrated in the form of transcripts. And universities also, of course, require students' ability to pay applicable fees. But pathways have been open, and we are continuing to press on behalf of affected students and to encourage creative thinking. Students who are experiencing difficulties accessing their academic records have been encouraged to reach out to the embassy to share details so that we can make inquiries as well, and so that we can seek to intervene with the relevant authorities where appropriate and, of course, where necessary. The government also is prepared to assist with one-way airlift from Cuba to Jamaica, and we have advised our students of this, subject to the availability of flights and timing. We have advised them, and to date, no student has asked us for assistance with departure. We understand some of the privately funded students may have left and not notified us formally. This therefore allows for us to have a less than perfect understanding of the numbers that are present, but we continue to encourage them to let us know so that we have the best understanding of the student population present. We reiterate that students who remain in Cuba do so at their own decision, by their own decision. And we respect and empathize because we understand what they are balancing in their minds. They continue to hope that things will improve so that their studies can continue in the way that they planned when they went there first. We remain in direct contact through WhatsApp, and they can not only engage in this way, which is more convenient given the uncertainty of connectivity issues, which means that a phone call may not actually be successful at the time you would expect it to be, but a WhatsApp message can always be picked up. And similarly, we've provided them with email addresses that they can use if they have more personal, sensitive, or emergency circumstances which they want to bring to attention, or with which they want to seek assistance. And to date, there have only been 2 requests for assistance with transcripts, and 1 with requests for additional information about how they would go about transferring to UWI, but no actual requests for assistance to leave. And again, just allow me to remind that the Jamaican Embassy in Havana remains the immediate point of contact in emergencies, and that urgent matters may also be raised at consular@mfaft.gov.jm. That's consular@mfaft.gov.jm. Issue 3, visit of the USS Nimitz. I really want to touch on this because it is, I think, not only a matter of some public discourse, but also quite historic. The visit of the Nimitz represents a historic visit. It is one of the largest ships in the world, and it is the first such vessel to be docked pierside in Kingston Harbor. I received a tweet on social media that said, very kindly, that they know I will provide logical answers to the questions. Why are they here? Did people know? And how long will they be here? And I plan to answer those questions this morning. So the vessel is in Kingston from June 1 to June 5th on a friendship and goodwill visit. And it was a great pleasure last evening to join a wide spectrum of Jamaicans, members of government, members of the opposition, public and private sectors, civil society, and academia at a reception to celebrate the visit, and indeed to celebrate the strong and multi-sectoral friendship and partnership between the US and Jamaica represented by this visit. Diplomacy is embodied in many ways: economic, health, sports, education, and among the most impactful and possibly quite present and relevant nowadays are defense diplomacy and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So while the vessel is a warship, it is also very much a vessel of peace, which has the capacity to deliver water and food supplies and to provide humanitarian assistance and disaster relief at very short notice in the event of a disaster, and has done so over its lifetime. It is an impressive engineering feat, and that groups of Jamaicans, and particularly young people, will have and are having the opportunity to see this capacity up front, up close, and to actively consider future careers in this context is another aspect to this welcomed opportunity. The visit of the Nimitz falls under its Southern Seas 2026 tour. It's a tour of the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, and it is the 11th iteration of their established maritime cooperation deployment that has been running since 2007. Recall that this is also the oldest fleet member that is above water at this point in time. This event is not a sudden or a standalone event. It is a scheduled engagement within a long-standing program. We were advised of the planned visit earlier in the year, and we are very proud to be able to accommodate them in Kingston Harbour, demonstrating the actual capacity of the 7th largest natural harbour in the world. There are countries where they wanted to go portside but could not because they cannot be accommodated, and this is actually something that countries were very surprised about within South America, etc., to recognize that Jamaica can receive post-Panamax side vessels, and this does mean that we are actually well positioned to become that 4th logistics node that we're working towards. I won't name the countries that their ambassadors expressly said to me, you know, the ship could not dock for us. Our officials had to be flown out only. And we were very, very surprised to realize that Jamaica can hold vessels of this size. 7th largest natural harbor in the world, folks. It's not just a tagline, it is real, and there are many opportunities to be held. As a result of this, it will get great visibility as well. But that we are the final regional stop before they return to the United States, which makes absolute geographical sense, is also a great opportunity for tourism and people-to-people exchange. And I understand that the sailors who have been coming ashore for rest and restoration, that they've been full of reasons as to why they will return with their families. During the Goodwill visit, the crew is going to participate in community activities, including school refurbishments, sports engagements, and STEM-focused educational exchanges alongside engagements with the Jamaica Defence Force and universities. And I'm sure you're going to hear more details about these events. I can share that in terms of school refurbishments, Rinnock Lodge Primary, Grove Primary, Gainstead High, and Clancarty High are among the schools that will get a paint refresh and some other positive benefits, physical benefits. And while the tours will not include any children under 14, they will include students of some of our tertiary institutions, including CMU. And to date, I've only heard 2 high schools, KC and Wolmer's, who will be part of the tours that are allowed on board. Just to state a little more specifically, perhaps, that we are aware of public commentary around the visit, including questions about how the presence of a warship should be interpreted in the current regional environment. And I want to place on record and state once more that this is a scheduled port visit under an established program of maritime cooperation and goodwill. They've been at sea for about 2.5 months since they left port in the US, and I ask our publics to think logically. The US has not been shy about demonstrating power and the possibility of force where they have wished to do. There would be no need to burden themselves with receptions and school paintings and community football and to use resources in this way in order to send a message of menace or threat. They have not been shy. We have had information as well about the trip. We know what the programs are. We have engaged as between our governments and as between our defense forces, unlike in any circumstance where they would be on their own national mission, which would be of any greater sensitivity. They would not need to stop in 10 countries to preface a visit in Jamaica if they wanted to send a message other than the message which we have received, which is that of goodwill and friendship. I will share with you that on this trip, they have visited and engaged with maritime forces from Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Uruguay, Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad, Grenada, with planned port visits, not only in Jamaica, but Brazil, Chile, and Panama. And port visits are a matter of capacity and the ability to dock, because many seas, quite simply, and harbors just cannot accommodate the size of this ship. And on its return from the southern hemisphere, Jamaica, therefore, presents the most natural, and I'm sure for the crew, a most welcome stop. I want to now move to the well, before I move to the next one, I'll mention that one of the exciting things about being on this vessel was, of course, recognizing that there are several members of our diaspora who serve in specialized and generalized areas, and again, demonstrating that Jamaicans are everywhere, doing the best representation of our country and of our excellence and abilities. And they are aboard the Nimitz and happy to be home and having the opportunity to come ashore to rekindle connections and experience their heritage has also been a wonderful thing for us to learn of. And that connection brings me to the fourth matter this morning, the 11th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference, to which I extend a warm invitation to Jamaicans both at home and abroad. It's going to be June 14th at the Montego Bay Convention Center. It is Jamaica's premier platform for connecting Jamaicans at home and abroad with each other, with the decision makers, with opportunities for partnership, for investment, for national development. We have some very exciting panelists and participants and presenters this year, and we are very soon going to share that information, not doing it today. Our oversubscribed marketplace continues to have waitlisted businesses that are hoping someone will miss a deadline this week, which will open a spot for them because excitement is quite high. Registrations are going well, and this is really not one to be missed. I use the opportunity to acknowledge and thank our legacy partners and sponsors, both longstanding and new, whose support continues to sustain this important national platform. The diaspora has shown extraordinary generosity in the wake of Hurricane Melissa, and the conference allows us to not only channel that goodwill into practical partnerships and lasting impacts beyond Melissa support, but it will also focus on communities for the Diaspora Day of Service. That takes place on the 18th, and it's a major, major feature this year. We have 20 designated projects, and participants in the conference can register early and volunteer for a project of their choice at bjdcmfaft.gov.jm. That is the site for registration, for accessing your accommodation rates, etc. bjdc.mfaft.gov.jm. And it's important to recognize, of course, that the conference is not only for Jamaicans overseas, it's for Jamaicans right here. Entrepreneurs, professionals, creatives, investors, and community leaders who want to connect with diaspora investors, global networks, business leaders, and decision makers. This is the place to make it happen. So I encourage you to use this opportunity to register. You can get day passes as well, explore partnerships, and grow your business. For those of you overseas, there is still a discount, 10% discount that's available with Copa Airlines, depending on your routing. What is still available also are special hotel rates, but they are going fast. Iberostar is fully booked already. Half Moon, Ocean, Coral Springs, and Ocean Eden Bay do have some rooms left, but the rates, the early rates, the discounted rates are limited, so really this week is probably your last opportunity to get the discounted rates. bjdc.mfaft.gov.jm remains your best way in. Updates are available on MFAFTJA on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. And my message to you is simple. Come, network, build, invest, come home, or come visit if you are already home. Whether you're flying from London, Toronto, New York, or Accra, whether you're flying from Pretoria or Tokyo, or driving from Kingston, there is a seat for you at the table. Thank you very much, Minister Morris Dixon, for allowing me to be here, Senator Morgan, and I will end there, and I'll wait for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and I think she showed you why I said she's the best Minister of Foreign Affairs we've ever had. I really thank her especially for tackling the issue of the USS Nimitz. I know a lot of people are anxious about it. I hope that you will replay over and over again what she has said in relation to the visit of that aircraft carrier to Jamaica. Now we have someone who is doing some wonderful work. He is helping Jamaica to move into the modern world and to actually be a leader in this world. And that is none other than our minister that has responsibility for a whole heap of things: is science, technology, AI, everything. All of these things that we are going to need in order to really become a force in the future in terms of an economic force. And so I ask you to join me in welcoming this morning Dr. the Honourable Andrew Wheatley, or Minister of Many Things.
Thank you very much, Minister Morris Dixon. I believe that it is because I am Minister of too many things. That is why I was unable to complete the presentation yesterday. Good morning, everyone. I want to begin by thanking each and every one of you for being here this morning. You know, yesterday I had the privilege of standing before the People's Parliament to deliver the sectorial presentation for financial year 2026-2027. Of course, we know that Parliament is where a government makes its commitments on the record before the nation's elected representatives. And I must say that yesterday we had a little bit of challenge because of the volume of work being done in OPM as relates to the subject areas we have under our responsibility. But I must say that we do not take it lightly that we have a responsibility to ensure that we communicate with the people of Jamaica. And so I want to say thank you for taking the time out to be here with us this morning. The theme of yesterday's presentation was grit. Growth through research, innovation, and technology. And that theme was deliberately chosen. Not as a slogan, but because it is a statement of fact about what this moment demands of Jamaica. We are living through a fundamental reorganization of the global economy. The countries that build infrastructure to convert knowledge into prosperity are pulling ahead of us. The countries that do not are falling behind, and not slowly, but very rapidly, as we can see around us what is happening. The truth is that Jamaica has extraordinary talent. And the world has confirmed that. And I'm sure Minister Johnson Smith would have experienced it over and over whenever she travels, not only within the region, not only in the United States, but as far as Africa. We are really much recognized and appreciated. Of course, we know about athletics, we know about music, in boardrooms, in the labs. Far from home, we are recognized as a force to be reckoned with. But the truth is that there has been a serious and costly gap between who we are as a people and what we invest in becoming as a nation. And that is the gap that this portfolio now exists to close. And that is what I laid before Parliament yesterday. Yesterday's presentation covered 9 areas of major policy and program action. And I want to walk you briefly through each one. My team has prepared individual press releases for every announcement, which are available to you now. Let me start firstly with the House of Innovation. Jamaica's National Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategic Plan for 2026 to 2035. I must add that this is very close to my heart because I'm a scientist. You know, my first training is in the sciences as a research scientist and as a lecturer in basic medicine at the University of the West Indies, going as far as Imperial College in London to do research work. So I can say that I'm a product of the educational system in Jamaica producing scientists. And I've seen where quite a number of my graduates, PhD students, master's students, they are now overseas doing excellent work representing our country. And so the gap that exists in terms of support for research and development is something that cannot be left untouched. That gap of creating a nurturing environment that not only train our scientists, but affords them the opportunity to stay here in Jamaica and contribute to our own ecosystem to build out and not just transfer knowledge to persons living in other jurisdiction. And that, I believe, is something that we have to appreciate. It's not only in the sciences, but generally. I know the Minister of Education can speak to that we have invested heavily in training our students to become scientists, doctors, architects, engineers. But as soon as they are qualified, they are, I don't want to use the word stolen, but the truth is that they are encouraged to leave our shores. And so that brain drain also contributes to reduce capacity to contribute to nation building. And so the House of Innovation seeks to provide support for research and knowledge development in Jamaica. It is hoped that a US $250 million blended finance target will be realized over 10 years with the goal of raising our research investment from 0.07% to 1.5% of GDP by 2035. Very ambitious, but it's something that is doable. We need to encourage our private sector to invest in R&D. We have to move from where we just, bring things here and repackage and open, that will contribute to economic growth and development. We have to now move to the stage where we invest in R&D and ensure that indigenous products, which are always welcomed all over the world, that we do our part and now export the products. So I've committed this to Cabinet for approval in very short order for us to support the investment in science, technology, and innovation. Another program that we announced yesterday was the national rollout of NEST. Again, my colleague, Minister of Education, I'm sure will appreciate this. The NEST program, which is nurturing early scientific thinking to 500 early childhood institutions across all 14 parishes by the end of this year. Again, we know for a fact that the scientist, the engineer, and the entrepreneur Jamaica needs tomorrow begins asking the question at a very early age, at least at the age of 3 years old. We want to stimulate, the thinking. In fact, I just had to purchase, and this is very personal, a science kit for my son. His mother said to me that he appears that he wants to become a doctor. She wants to stimulate his mind to continue along that path. And so we have a number of what we call STEM kits that I believe will start to inculcate in the minds of our young people, our children at the basic and early child primary level, that appreciation for the sciences. Because, again, we know we have a natural talent. Whenever Jamaicans put their mind to anything, we always succeed, and we want to open up the thinking of our children at a very early age to appreciate the STEM subjects. We also announced the National Cybersecurity Coordination and Assurance Council, the NCCAC. It is our intention to bring to Cabinet a proposal to establish this body as the central coordinating authority for Jamaica's national cybersecurity posture. It's very lean, time-bound, 24 months. And it is intended to take every cybersecurity asset Jamaica already has and convert them into one coherent, accountable national effort. And I cannot overstate the importance of cybersecurity. We are talking about infusing technology in our everyday life. We have to ensure that we provide an environment that allows our citizens to feel very comfortable, especially some of us who are more mature and very skeptic as it relates to the use of technology. We have our parents and grandparents who believe that they must go into the bank with their bank book to do business in the bank and are very skeptical of using online services. Again, we have to ensure that we provide that environment that supports them and affords them the opportunity to feel safe. And so cybersecurity is something that we have to push. And of course, we know we have a number of entities in Jamaica working in the cybersecurity space, government agencies. We have to ensure we bring everything under one umbrella to ensure that we know what is happening in one corner of the government, and ensure that the infrastructure that is there, aligns with the overall theme of ensuring that we have a proper national cybersecurity position and infrastructure. A very important area that is very topical at this moment, the era of artificial intelligence. I mean, every ministry, every department, every agency of government, every single Jamaican is very much excited about the era of artificial intelligence. But we have to be very cautious in that we do not just run into the era without ensuring that we understand what is happening in that space. We have to ensure that necessary safeguards are there. We have to recognize that the human component is also very important, that it will not go away, because with every technology there are also risks. And so we have to ensure that, for example, the policy is there, the legislation is there to support the safe use, to protect human beings, their data, remove biases. So we have a lot to do here. So we asked our National AI Task Force. We have Christopher Record here, our chairman of the National AI Task Force, and we gave them some serious work. And I must commend the AI Task Force, because we had asked them just 2 weeks ago to develop an AI literacy policy, which we are currently reviewing and will be bringing to cabinet for us to examine and look at rolling it out immediately, because we recognize that a number of ministries, departments are using AI to do some small stuff, but we have to ensure that it is done in a very structured way, because again, sensitive information may be exposed if it is not done a particular way. So the AI Task Force has been tasked to develop the AI policy. They have Chris, until I don't know if it's the 1st or the end of November of this year, but whatever way you take it, is November 2026 that I expect to have the AI policy. And of course, by the end of the financial year in 2027, we hope to have the AI legislative framework in place, because we have to ensure that we provide the structure and the legislation that will facilitate the responsible use of AI. And so that is a mandate given to the National AI Task Force. And I have no doubt that the team of experts from the public sector, the private sector, academia, civil society that comprise the task force, they are working to meet those deadlines. Again, in line with an appreciation of where AI is and how we have to now retool, reskill our citizens to be able to participate in this space, we announce GAINS. Not an acronym for the sake of putting out there another acronym. I heard a colleague saying that they love the acronym and they like the fact that it connects, but this is not for sure. GAINS stands for Growing AI Innovation and National Skills, right? It is a Jamaican 545 million national workforce transformation program that we announced yesterday to deliver AI skills, certification, and employment pathways to all 63 constituencies. It is an approach that we believe will encourage and provide an environment for our unattached youth, for example, single mothers, you name it, persons who are now working in the BPO sector, to see other opportunities presenting themselves. They can also become their own innovators once they are skilled in the use of the technology. So it is self-empowerment. It is also providing a pathway, because the private sector and government will need persons with those skill sets. And so GAINS is geared towards that. We already have the infrastructure in place. We have the community access points in community centers, at schools, you name it. So what we have to do now is to ensure that the infrastructure at these community access points can now facilitate the training. And so that infrastructure that was laid out maybe around 10 years ago by the government, and we are still doing that, we are now utilizing it in a way that can enhance and create opportunities for our people. So it is that infrastructure that is there, laying down, gathering dust. We are ensuring that we utilize the infrastructure that we invested in the community access point. The Jamaica Social Investment Fund will be the implementing authority, and of course, ART and STA will provide the necessary certification. And we will be drawing from experts in AI to facilitate the training program. So it is not something that will be static. We have to ensure that as AI evolves, that the trainer imparts in tune with the realities and the direction in which the technology is moving, right? Another matter that was raised is that of data embassies. Again, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade appreciate the sovereignty when you use the word embassies. You know, an embassy is supposed to be an extension of a country in another jurisdiction. And it is the same thing that this whole concept of data embassy is about. You know, Hurricane Melissa really opened our eyes to the realities that we are exposed. Climate change does affect Jamaica. And as such, we have to ensure that critical information and infrastructure are not exposed. And so what the data embassy really embodies is for us to be able to store sensitive, very critical information off island in another jurisdiction, but with the level of protection, so that the country that is hosting will not be able to access, interfere, you know, whatever, because under treaty and international law, it is basically an embassy of Jamaica storing the data. So the whole data embassy concept is something that we must appreciate, you know, data sovereignty. We cannot be storing or moving information from our shores to another jurisdiction without the necessary guardrails to protect the sovereignty of our data. And so that is the concept that we are exploring. We have seen where, I believe it was Estonia or Croatia, suffered a disaster, and they started the whole thing of data embassy and are now storing their data in Lithuania or Luxembourg. I don't do that only, but they are storing it outside of their jurisdiction so that they have a copy or a record or backup. It is indeed a backup, you know, of their critical information, their critical data in another jurisdiction. We also spoke about nuclear energy. We have a MOU in place, which we signed last year, I believe it was last year, October, with Canadian Nuclear Laboratories and Atomic Energy of Canada. And Jamaica is advancing the foundational work required for a responsible, evidence-based assessment of small modular reactors as part of our long-term energy future. Until we find oil, we have to ensure that we have energy security. And energy security is about diversification. And we are seeing where, again, we have to provide for our citizens and our society clean, reliable energy, baseload energy, and we are exploring the possibility of nuclear energy. But it will not be done in such a way that We do not have proper consultation. We have to do proper training and develop a real appreciation of the whole energy, nuclear energy sector, the responsibility. And again, it is just something that we are exploring. It is not something that we're going to do tomorrow or next year or the year, down the road. But we have to be very open-minded in our approach and ensure that we're very transparent, that we are consultative in our approach as it relates to the possibility of going the route of small modular reactors to supply us with electricity. The Jamaica Social Investment Fund, and I was not able to complete the presentation yesterday, but the JSIF is entering the largest investment phase in its institutional history. Again, the Hurricane Melissa opened our eyes to, again, the need for social and infrastructural development. And so the Jamaica National Recovery and Resilience Project, everything now is moving towards not just recovery, but in resilience, building out resilience in everything that we do. And this concept or this phase of investment, the Jamaica National Recovery and Resilience Project, which is roughly 27 billion Jamaican dollars, 170 million US dollars over 5 years. We intend to work with the Ministry of Education to, build out 100 schools or assist with the refurbished rehabilitation of some 100 schools, the building out of 8 resilience hub. And I can tell you this, straight off the bat, that something that was brought to our attention, and when we did the research, there are a number of social and public health issues that needs to be addressed, especially in the areas that we went to after Hurricane Melissa. Sanitation is something that we have to now, target going forward. And that is a program that I will announce at a later date, but just want to let the public be aware that the government appreciate that we have a social responsibility as well. And we are now examining and looking at a program that will address some social issues running through the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. But the Jamaica National Recovery and Resilience Project is expected to benefit almost 1 million Jamaicans immediately over the next 5 years. I want to close with this, ladies and gentlemen, that Jamaica has always done more with less. We have competed at the highest levels in athletics, in music, in diplomacy, with a fraction of the resources available to the nations we outperform. And that is not by luck or chance. That is a product of a people with extraordinary intelligence, extraordinary resilience, and extraordinary will. What we have not done fully, consistently, systematically, is invest in the infrastructure that converts that intelligence into sustained national prosperity. The infrastructure of knowledge, innovation, and digital resilience is the new frontier in which we are going to actively participate. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have the grit to do what is needed.
Thank you very much, Minister Wheatley. And I told you he is doing a lot of very, very big things that are taking us towards the future that we know Jamaica can have. And so it's really good this morning to be able to hear more of what you wanted to say in the Parliament, but we've given you more time this morning to talk about some of the initiatives. And as you heard, there are going to be some releases coming out. You're going to be hearing much more about these areas of focus, AI and otherwise. Chris Rackard is here, the chairman of the AI task force. Minister Wheatley, he is used to tight deadlines. When I gave him my deadline before, he was able to meet it. And so I think he will meet the November deadline. And so thank you for your service, and to the team from the AI task force too for their service. So you've heard from 2 individuals who are just exemplary in terms of their commitment to Jamaica. And as I told you earlier, we do have in the audience some members of Golden Crust, and that's an important diaspora company that we're very, very proud of in Jamaica. And I told them they can have 3 minutes to tell you what's going on in Jamaica, but I want to acknowledge who is here. So ministers, we have with us, as I said earlier, Mrs. Orlean Luna Ndow, who is the Executive Director for Restaurant Operations. We also have Mr. Christopher Hilton, Director of Quality Control, and Mr. Stephen Clark, Vice President of Marketing. And they're here in Jamaica helping our communities, and that's what our diaspora does so well. And it's so wonderful and fitting that Minister Johnson Smith speaks about the Diaspora Conference on the morning that we have the diaspora here with us talking about their contribution. It's not just about remittances. Our diaspora means so much more, and so I invite whoever the rep is this morning to come forward and tell us, and I gave you 3 minutes to tell us what you're doing here in Jamaica.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Clark. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Golden Crust Caribbean Restaurant, the first black-owned Caribbean franchise in the United States, founded in 1989 by my Uncle Lowell and his siblings. Good morning, honorable ministers, distinguished officials, esteemed guests, and dignitaries. Sincere thanks to Honorable Dr. Dana Morris Dixon, our Minister of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information. I see that title continues to grow, so continue. Don't worry, you can manage. We've seen you do it, so we know you can manage. And thank you for allowing us to be a part of this, wonderful gathering. Really appreciate you having us today. 33 days after Hurricane Melissa hit, Golden Crust hit the ground, with our CEO, Jackie Hawthorne, who wasn't able to join us today, with a mission to help the farmers first. A lot of people don't know this, but every Golden Crust patty carries a piece of Jamaica within. We buy all our Scotch bonnet, peppers, and our thyme from the soil of the island to protect the authenticity, and of course to help the economy. So we had to make sure, earnestly, we met before the storm. We partnered with the American Friends of Jamaica, and Chris Hilton, who is here with us, our Director of Quality Control, also partnered with Carita, who does helps us with our sourcing of the goods. And we came down here, we found 10 farmers across 5 parishes, helped them get their irrigation equipment, pesticides, fungicides, all the things that they needed to get back up and running. And we went back and we planted with them. Of course, people can send checks, but it's much better to go down there, till the soil, plant the thyme, and make the thyme for these people who ship goods to us, but now they know that we're not just a company in the States, we're actually Jamaicans as well. So after we did that, we wanted to make sure that we took care of the students, the kids, the future. The executive team here with us today, Orlean and Hilton, we're all products of what I believe is the finest Jamaican education system in the world. Call me biased, but I think when I've been in the States for some time, and I see the difference. What we're doing here in Jamaica is certainly something special. If I could send my son Noah down here, I would, but I need him with me up there. So what we did for our part 2, as we continue to give back, is we identified 7 schools across 6 parishes from infant to high to ensure that they had a place to eat. As a food restaurant franchise, we found it wise to help the students rebuild their canteens or cafeterias or tuck shops, as you might call it. So we are actively working right now on visiting the following schools across the island: Rossies High in Hanover, Crawford Primary in St. Elizabeth, Port Maria Infant in St. Mary, which we went to yesterday, and it was quite heartwarming. Principal Robinson served 34 years there, and she's retiring in September, so we're able to give her a nice send-off. Monroe College in St. Elizabeth, Westwood High in Trelawney, of which Orlean is an alumni, so I have to give you your flowers there, Miss Westwood. Providence Heights Infant in St. James, and Savlamar Infant in Westmoreland. So we were on the road yesterday from 6 to 7, and I don't mean for 1 hour, and we're gonna be on the road again on Thursday, heading down to St. Elizabeth and then down to Lucy to visit Rossies. A huge initiative for us, feeding the futures of the island. The minds of tomorrow will continue to build the island as we continue to tackle AI, as we continue to support the diaspora. And we have students in here today. So that's what's up next. We're doing our part, but we need to do what we need to do so that they can have a better education, they can eat comfortably, their rooms without roofs, and it's just tough. We've seen a lot of things over the last 6 months, but we're going to be here to continue to support them, and trust me, it's really still hard out there. I know we might not see it, but there's so much work left to be done. So we appreciate your support. We're really happy that you have us today, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know. But thank you all for helping us out, getting the word, spreading the word, and help us with this Feeding Futures campaign. So if you guys have any questions, we'll be here. But until then, thank you, Senator. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We need all the help we can get. And I want to say something too. This is really Minister of Foreign Affairs in action, because a lot of people don't understand that element. So when the Minister of Foreign Affairs is doing all this work in terms of diaspora engagement and doing something like a diaspora conference, it's really about continuing to build that relationship between the diaspora and Jamaica. And it yields things like what we just heard from Golden Crust Bakery. So, usually we think of foreign affairs and we just think of them in relation to, diplomacy and those diplomatic areas. But they're really, really important in terms of, especially in an area like diaspora relations, and assisting our country in that effort. And also for students who are here, we have Monroe here and we have Wilma's here. But just to note that for students and even in healthcare, the Minister of Foreign Affairs does a lot of work behind the scenes in supporting us. So when we have a lot of international partners who want to assist us in education or in healthcare, it's usually through the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So it's a lot more than just diplomatic work. And so it's a nice morning to bring all of that together. And now I'll stop talking and get to the questions that the media has this morning. And I know you have questions.
Thank you, Minister. Just a gentle reminder for those persons who have their questions. Please stand, state your name and the entity you're representing.
Thank you, Rasheen. She is one of our young, bright stars in media and communications, and she's taken over this role quite ably, so thank you.
Good morning. This is Crystal Williams from CVM News. My question is for Minister Wheatley on the data embassies that he mentioned. How will these offshore data storage vessels concretely benefit the country, especially if the concept introduces additional costs? Additionally, how feasible is this approach legally? Thank you. Okay,
so I'm glad for that question. So you will appreciate that we are susceptible to climate change. If, for example, critical information that is housed in Jamaica becomes exposed as a result of a disaster, you would have lost everything, every single thing. Just think about it. Court records, land titles, every sensitive and critical information. And so what the data embassy is about is more like a backup offshore, off island, I should say. And it will be governed by a treaty. So it's not something that you are just getting up and creating, and of course, you have to have the legal framework and to support that. And of course, the legislative framework, because again, moving the information, storing it off the island is something that will have to go through the parliament, and we have to have that level of agreement and security. In terms of costing, the costing is not that critical. When you balance the cost of losing those sensitive data, again, we have to recognize that we are moving in an age where technology is old and it is on the underpinning of our society. Every single thing that we are now doing is about using technology, whether it's AI or the traditional technologies out there. And what it does, it is data management, data storage. Right now, I believe data sovereignty, data security is even more important than money, actual cash, because it will generate the funds that you talk about. But data, that is the currency that is now being used to transact business and to secure our society.
Good morning, everyone. Mahiri Stewart, Nationwide News here. Two questions to Minister Morsix and one to Senator Johnson-Smith. I'll start with you. So there was an Observer report recently in which the UTEC president, Dr. Kevin Brown, had spoken about the situation that tertiary institutions are facing in terms of the fact that of the 30,000 students leaving high school, around 6,000 of them have the 5 CSEC subjects with math and English. And he was saying that it's difficult for the institutions to choose amongst that small pool of students. What's the ministry's reaction to this, and what does the ministry think can be done to solve an issue like this?
All right, so that's a very interesting question, and that's one of the reasons that we've been having a lot of conversations about improving performance in CSEC and also in CAPE exams. And we've come to the realization that it is very important that we start early. And that's why early childhood education is important, and Minister Wheatley's initiatives, for example, bringing science earlier, or initiatives in terms of bringing nutrition from the very early stages is key. And also what we're doing in terms of putting trained teachers into our basic schools, even when they're not government operated, is very important, because we understand if we're going to get the outcomes we want eventually, more students going to universities, so on, it's going to be very, very important that we start early and change things. So one of the things we've said also is that our goal is to have no student leave primary school not literate and not numerate. In order to do that, we have to measure it. And so this year is the first year in Jamaica that we're measuring numeracy and literacy at grade 6. And in a few weeks, we'll know where they are. And then I can set my targets going forward, because the plan is no child should go to high school not being numerate and literate. And that changes the trajectory. But it's going to be some time before we get there. But on the tertiary matter, we're going to have some serious conversations about tertiary. If we look globally at where the labor shortages are, and the labor market is changing fundamentally, and AI is disrupting it big time, it is clear that universities have to change. We know skills are more demanded. Skills areas, so your construction workers, your plumbing, all these other areas, that's where the demand is globally. And we're seeing that shortage here in Jamaica as we're doing all of this reconstruction in the West. We have shortages of skilled labor. We also see globally that young people want much more of the micro-credentialing. So they want to do short courses that just stack on top of each other. So they're not looking at your 4-year degree or your 3-year degree. They're looking at getting skills that just match up with each other, and then they become this unique skilled person that comes out into the labor force. So our universities also have quite a bit of work to do in terms of understanding what that labor market looks like, what does it need, and also being able for us really to be able to help our students to understand where the world is going so that they can get skilled in a way that they can make a living. So it was an interesting conversation, and so there's work being done to increase the grades, but it's also a conversation around what does university education look like in this new age, and it is changing. And I look forward to having much more of those conversations, and it's a global conversation, and we were having it in my recent conversations with other ministers of education. Around the world, many countries are looking at shifting resources around in the tertiary pool and emphasizing skills training more than your traditional university education. But there's a space for both, and in Jamaica we have to figure out what's that right balance. Long answer, sorry.
Second question would be, is there any update on the members of Jamrock?
All right, so in terms of cabinet, we had a discussion around Jamrock, and many of the members have been identified, but there are still outstanding members. Remember, the Prime Minister had made a commitment that he wanted to have members of civil society, private sector, for example, included. That means getting the entities and opposition to nominate their candidates, and so we're in that process. So as soon as that's finalized, we will tell the media.
All right, thank you. And last question to Senator Johnson-Smith. Is there any update you can give on Jamaicans who are in the Middle East? I know the Foreign Affairs Ministry had reached out during times of tension in that area of the world. I know things haven't completely quelled since, so just checking if there's any update on how they're doing.
Thank you for that question. I actually don't have an update, a recent update. I know that persons had individually been, those who were either in transit or who had a strong desire or the flexibility to return, took advantage of flights that were based on availability to return, but that the majority was really quite settled and waiting for normalcy to return because they are either under contract and waiting to and continue to operate, because you recognize that even though there is anxiety and some instability, it doesn't permeate all levels of society and the operations, the normal operations of the societies. So we continue to monitor, we continue to have lines of communication open, and we will advise if there are any developments that require public attention. But thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Shamar Morrison, and I'm representing the Jamaica Prefects Association. So I have a question towards Minister Johnson Smith, specifically towards the bilateral agreements between Jamaica and Ghana, because I know you mentioned that today. So beyond health and education, the PJCC also produced some memorandums of understanding on defense cooperation, tourism and arts and culture. So I was just asking if you could give some details as it pertains to like defense cooperation, what the defense cooperation covers, as well as how the tourism MOUs will translate into more Ghanaian visitors into Jamaica.
Thank you. You always make me so proud when you come here.
Thank you very much. I think the number of badges generally is commensurate with the length of the question. Thank you for it. Excellent question. And just to clarify, so while tourism was on the agenda, we actually don't have a tourism cooperation MOU yet. It is one of the matters that we're looking at to see how we can have not only more Ghanaian tourists coming here, more Jamaican tourists going to Ghana. Part of this is tied into the impetus for the air services agreement, so laying the foundation for direct air travel. Right now, between Ghana and Jamaica, the route to get here does require going through some of the traditional locations where it is difficult to get a visa or costly to get a visa, or to require so many hops that it becomes less attractive. So that's one of the things that we're trying to fix, even as we leverage the discussion around tourism resilience and multi-destination tourism. You recall I mentioned Jamaica as an entry point to the region, given our very extensive air connectivity, and Ghana's entry point to the continent of Africa as well, given their connectivity. So this is something we're actively looking at, how to manifest into actual movement of strong volumes of people, and tourism is one of the things that we're looking at in that. And arts and culture, we have an old agreement, so the aim is to expand that, and that's why we agreed in the Commission to additional areas of cooperation. And there will be exchanges on both sides in sports, in training of coaches, and in actual athletic exchanges to, again, leverage the people-to-people connectivity between us. It's also to look at creative industries, fashion design, the development of artisans at different levels. The artisans also related to tourism, how we deal with craftspersons, sustainability, the generational sustainability. They have the same issues as us, where young people definitely don't necessarily want to go into making craft, but it is so important as a part of culture and a real part of authentic tourism that people want to experience on both sides. So we're looking at how to exchange skills, preservation of heritage. So what they have done, for example, with their Kwame Nkrumah museum, how they retain his memory and recognize it symbolically. as a political, not only a political statement, but as a part of their sovereignty. There's a lot that we can learn from with our very rich heritage and what we can do to expand the presentation and preservation of ours, which is great and which influence theirs. So there's a lot that's happening. I thank you for your interest, and I hope that touches on some of, the old brain may not have retained everything from your question. Did I touch on enough? Okay, great.
From Monroe College, what time you left this morning to get here?
5:30 in the morning.
Very nice.
Yes, so I
Introduce yourself,
Oh,
please.
yes, introduce myself. My name is Brian Anderson, and I'm the president of the National Secondary Students Council, the official representative body of all students across Jamaica, secondary school students. So I have a lot of questions, but I'm only going to ask one to Minister Wheatley. So the question is, given CXC's slow change in syllabus and Jamaican syllabuses in general, how feasible is it to try and implement rapidly changing AI content into these syllabuses when the changes are fundamentally slow?
All right, it's a good thing that the Minister of Education is beside me that deals with curriculum in schools. And I will leave that the school issue for the Minister, but as it relates to the general public, whether you are at the school level or just a member of a community, that is what we are looking to address through gains, sensitization, using the community infrastructure to reach, to educate, to open the thinking of the general public, whether you are a teenager or an adult, that AI is here and gives you the basic skills. So, we are looking to roll out a pilot and, ensure that we touch, different parts of the island, the western and the Kingston and St. Andrew area and the central parts. We're looking to roll out 3 pilots to be able to gauge the take-up and the acceptance, and also to tweak it in such a way that where there are gaps, we fill those gaps and address the concerns or issues before we do a full rollout throughout the length and breadth of the country. So, from the school level, I know the Minister will have to examine it and see how best they can tweak the curriculum to ensure that it is in step with current realities, current demand, especially as AI is rapidly changing and evolving as we go by. It is one of those dynamic fields that today you have a concept and tomorrow, because of AI, you are seeing a revolution. And what it does do, it unleashes innovative capacity. And I know our Jamaican students will embrace and participate in that space as well.
Thank you, Minister. I'll just add in terms of just from the Ministry of Education standpoint, vis-a-vis AI. It's something that we're going to have to look at, especially in terms of more on the ICT side of the syllabus. That syllabus definitely has to change. What does it change to? And a couple weeks ago, I was with 150 ministers of education from around the world. And no country has an answer to how do you teach AI to our children and what's the appropriate level. All of us were having conversations around it because we've not found an answer to that question. And so we're all going through it together. We're having dialogue with big technology companies, and they'll be coming here to Jamaica. We'll be looking at how we can incorporate some of their work, because the key thing for me is our children must have the best of what everybody else has. So if other people are learning this and it's very cutting edge, our children must have that here in Jamaica. But it's something we have to work through. The syllabus is going to have to change. I'll give you one example at heart. We wanted to do a course in prompt engineering, an AI course. By the time the course was created, prompt engineering was not that important anymore in the AI space. And so we had to rethink the course. And so that's really the nature of AI. But one of the things we're very proud of is that we were first in this part of the world to have an AI policy in education. What that says is that we've always been open to AI. We understand its importance in our education structure. We just have to be very dynamic and figure out what that means. And I know you and all your your fellow classmates, the students across Jamaica that you represent, they are definitely using AI. When I go to schools, they tell me all about how they're using it to study and all of that. The key thing for us is to ensure that you're using it appropriately and that you are actually putting yourself in a position where you will become some of the producers of the AI technology going forward. But can I say something about Brian? Brian knows my respect for him. I ask the young people, even when they're in high school, to look at legislations that affect the Ministry of Education. And he took the Jamaica Teaching Council bill, and he went through it, and he came with his team, and he did a presentation on the Jamaica Teaching Council bill from the standpoint of the students. It was a brilliant presentation. He said, you know, some of the legal jargon I don't get, but I know what it's trying to achieve. And this is how you could do it better. And this area is not good enough. I think it needs to be explained a little bit better in terms of the languaging. And so I applaud him for that, taking the time. And he's gone through other legislation. He's given me other proposals to him and his body. And I respect that. And I have seen him under pressure at an event we did together. And the amount of pivoting he did, everything was not going right that day. And he still brought it together, and it reminded me how wonderful our young people are, and we just really need to give them the support. So, Brian, you're representing the students of Jamaica so well, and I just want to tell you that and acknowledge that publicly again. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, well, we're at 10:34. I figure that's the end of questions. It's been a good morning. Golden Crust. I know you never know we did this. Did you know we do a post-cabinet press briefing where we bring the ministers and the media can ask questions, and now we bring other people who can come in too. This is really our administration's commitment to openness. We don't do this work for ourselves, we do it for the people. And so we come here, we present ourselves, you can ask us questions, and we answer them. And we're so glad that you're here this morning to again show why our diaspora is so important to this country. And I want to thank Minister Johnson-Smith for her excellent presentation. I want to thank Minister Wheatley for opening our eyes to this great potential and opportunity that this country can become. And so this morning has been really good. And as we close out today, because we have a lot going on today, I just say, as always, may God truly continue to bless this wonderful country that we call Jamaica land we love. Thank you.